Ahoy everyone! I am back on the whiteboard again for a video because we are seeing a very big polling shift occurring in Canada right now, with Canadians finally realizing, at least in part, that Mark Carney and the Liberals have no real way of actually achieving many of the policy goals that they had set during the election. This is a big deal because while, yes, we are not going to have an election tomorrow in order to capitalize on the Liberals' popularity going down substantially, it demonstrates that Canadians are paying attention and they are not going to be dazzled simply by elbows up rhetoric forever. Eventually, you actually need to get stuff done. I remember when I had first said with that Abacus Data poll that came out that showed that the Liberals went from leading by 3 to the Conservatives leading by 2, that we were going to see other pollsters start to follow suit. People said that that was highly naive of me on social media. It's just Abacus Data, Wyatt. Well, then we saw Innovative Research have their poll go from +5 liberal to +2 liberal, and then Main Street went from +9 liberal to just +2 liberal as well. And then we will be talking about this in another video. Angus Reid just came out with a poll that shows that the Conservatives are leading by 2. It's actually now an outlier result to show the Liberals substantially ahead. Nanos is actually a good pollster during elections. Post election, Nanos goes to a cheaper way of doing polls, and you can see it right after the election had ended. The Liberals win the popular vote by 2.23%. Nanos had been generally getting results during the election that were akin to what the election results looked like. They were pretty accurate. And then after the election, like whoop, you see the Liberals jump up 14 points. And now they're still leading the Conservatives by double digits. And then you get all the other polls like Spark Insight and Ecos that will tell you that the Liberals are doing super well. But I wouldn't put much stock into those guys, considering that they are frequently wrong and not even in the ballpark of election results when they poll during elections. But today I want to go over this Abacus data set about about people's scorecard in relation to how the Liberals are doing on key priorities that they had run on, because the deterioration of perception that the Liberals are getting anything done is going to start dogging them into the fall session of Parliament. Because with so few people actually thinking the Liberals are doing a good job of moving forward on these issues, it's going to give a lot of deserved fodder to Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives to go after them, saying, well, didn't you say you're going to do this? Well, didn't you say you're going to do that? Well, how is it working out? But before we get into it, I do just quickly want to remind you guys that, hey, if you like the show, make sure to leave a like on this, subscribe if you are not yet a subscriber, and leave a comment on what you think about the Liberals' current perception, what you think about them, and how you think their polling is going to change in the future. Look, I actually kept that whole, it's not really an ad read, I kept that little mid intro pretty short. But this is the specific data set I want to be talking about today. And this is why I believe people like the whiteboard. This is cancer to look at, just like this giant chart of stuff that you can probably not see from wherever you're sitting. But I want to talk about a few of these priorities, but most particularly priority one. This is basically being rated on how much of a priority people think it is, how relevant it is right now, and then the progress the government is making. I almost think that relevance and priority should have just been mushed together. I'm not sure why those need to be different categories. But the first priority on this card says forge a new economic and security partnership with the US and expand trade with reliable global allies. Now, this is basically saying the elbows up promise that the Liberals were making, how relevant is that to you? And also, how is the progress that the Liberals have been making? So let's just put this down as P1. This is priority number one that Abacus Data pulled. Now, the relevance was rated at 80%. So this is something that if you ask Canadians, they think it is a big issue. I actually don't think it's as big of an issue for us to diversify our trade away from the United States. They're a good ally. We should be trying to make a new defense. Like we should be basically be trying to change our defensive relationship with them, but in the sense that we actually don't spend enough on defense, and so we've been basically asking the Americans to flip the bill for us for a very long time. But regardless, depending on how the question was asked, 80% of people said that it was a relevant priority. Now, right now, when you ask Canadians, how much are we making progress on this issue right now? The amount of people who will agree with that is just 33%. 33% of Canadians think we are making progress on this big issue for the Liberals during the election. And how much is that down since the last time Abacus Data did a poll on the scorecard issues? Well, it is in fact down 13%. 13% in probably just a couple of months since they last polled how people see the government's progress on this issue. They went from 46 to 33. And that is, in fact, a pattern with a lot of these other issues that they're polling on. Here's a good one. Priority number three, let's just highlight some of the big ones here. Priority number three was lower costs and help Canadians get ahead. Now, you'll remember when we did another Abacus Data poll, 60% of people put the cost of living in one of their top three issues. It is, in fact, the most frequently chosen top issue for Canadians, and people rate this one in terms of priority and relevance. Specifically, priority we're going to be talking about is 91%. 91% think this is a top priority because obviously it should be. And the amount of people who think that the Liberals have been making good progress, is 26%. And that, although it's already low, is down 6%. That is unbelievably crappy. That on cost of living, which is something that should be very easy to take care of if you actually give a crap, all you need to do is lower taxes. And on that, they're already slipping down because the thing with Mark Carney as a politician is he's actually very inflexible. He's not actually as good at business as you think he is. Not that any of you actually thought that. I'm just saying the general you of Canadians. A lot of his business career is built off of just having good relationships with governments and getting involved in industries that have a lot of government subsidies and grants attached to them. And once you're the prime minister, you can't exactly get a grant from another government to try and basically lift yourself up. You're now in charge and you actually need to build an efficient economy. And he doesn't seem to really want to do that. It's all the futzing around on the issue of major projects. After 170 days, he says, guys, I'm about to open up a major projects office. It's like, oh, wow, our first major project is opening up a bunch of bureaucracy. He doesn't need to do that. Just name issues or name big major projects that have been proposed in the past, or you're maybe newly proposing, hey, if someone builds a port over here, I'll fast track that. That's all he'd have to do. Instead, we need a bureaucracy to tell us what we're going to do on it. Okay. Here is another one. Reduce government spending so Canadians can invest more in business and people to grow the strongest economy in the G7. This was priority number 7 on this chart. I'm just trying to go through a sampling here. And these economic issues should also be, they're bread and butter issues for any government. So failing on these is bad. It is rated as a 79% priority. And basically everything on this chart was rated very highly. The lowest one was rated 74, but even then, we're talking about more than 2/3 of people. On this one, the government currently is only rated at a 32%, and I'm not going to write it any lower just because it's not going to fit in here, at least on camera, but that is even down 3%. Reduce government spending, despite the fact that Carney keeps making these declarations about how he wants his ministers to, find savings over the next couple of years, make your departments more efficient, get rid of the redundancies and whatnot. And by doing that, and this is what we're going to talk about in the Angus Reid poll probably tomorrow, not only has he ticked off a lot of the public sector unions and a lot of people are going back to voting for the NDP, but those who are more fiscally hawkish, who want to see the government reduce spending, and there are actually liberals who care about that sort of thing, finance guys in downtown Toronto who, despite voting liberal, maybe for more social issues, wanted to see a Carney government that acted kind of more conservative, that wanted to reduce just the waste in government. And that is not rated very highly now, and it's going downward. It's already gone down 3%, despite all the prognostications of Mark Carney saying that, oh, yeah, no, don't worry, we're going to find an extra $20 billion in the budget through efficiencies. And I think they've already had like reports come out saying that even if Mark Carney was able to find all the efficiencies he says he is, he's only going to be saving like, a dozen, 20 billion over like 10 years or something like that, or you'd only find it in that amount of time. The amount of time it would take for like attritional firings or attritional layoffs or retirements to actually have the impact that Carney thinks they are, it's going to be years, and it's not really going to be that substantial. But now I want to move on to another poll that Abacus Data put out specifically on the issue of basically how important the issue of Donald Trump is. If they are tired of this being like the main bugaboo right now of Canadian politics. So I'm just going to pause, erase the board, and then come back to you with that to talk about. Okay, we are back, and I'll admit that this polling result actually took me by surprise. I thought there was going to be more staying power to talking about Donald Trump in Canada, and it turns out a lot of people just want to stop hearing about it. So, this poll result was, or this poll question was asking, are you tired of hearing about Trump when Canada's own challenges need fixing? And they basically provide the examples of housing and healthcare and the economy. So when the economy, housing, and healthcare are right now in a crisis in Canada, do you want to stop hearing about Donald Trump's name all the time? Now, this one is not bearing good results for the Liberals at all. Hey, look, I have more colors than I usually do for markers, so I'll do everything very, very nicely color coded. We're going to start off with those who actually still do think that we actually do need to be talking about Donald Trump. So this is the Laura Babcock crowd, those who think that no, Trump is a very relevant issue and we should be talking about him. So, and this is in severity in terms of I'm not tired of it at all, no, not really, and then yes, somewhat tired, and then yes, very tired. So let's start off with not at all tired about hearing about Donald Trump. And remember, this is something that the Liberal government is still talking about all the time, whether it's overtly talking about it, like bringing up his name, or kind of scapegoating the idea that although the Americans did something to us, and this is Trump's trade fight he's having against us, even though our own economy sucked before all this. But only, only 4% of people say that they are not tired of hearing about Donald Trump. 4% of people still think that he is relevant to be talking about in the context of how bad our current problems are. And then once we jump down to people who are, not really tired of hearing about Donald Trump, not at all. Not at all would be like, no, I think we should be talking about him all the time. But those who are not really tired of it yet, it is 12%. Ooh, a big number 12. Hopefully this one shows up pretty well. It's a light green. 12% of people are not yet too tired of this. Oh my goodness, it is not showing up very well. Okay, we're gonna go to plan B. There we go. Look at that, guys. I can adjust my mistakes. So we got 12% of people who are, not tired of it yet, but maybe it's not a big deal to be bringing up Trump for them. And now we can jump up to those who are tired of it. It's people who are somewhat tired of hearing about Donald Trump in the context of Canada's other problems is 37%. 37%. And notice if you add these two numbers up, there seems to be a group of people who have not yet sounded off on how annoyed they are by it still being brought up. Those who are very tired of Donald Trump's name being invoked constantly in Canadian politics, despite all of our crippling problems, is 48% of people. So we have a total of 85% of people who want to stop hearing about Donald Trump because, frankly, he is not the major problem with Canada. Only 16% think that no, he's relevant and we should be talking about him. This is like the entire Liberals' election plan was talk about Donald Trump and hope that people will vote for you because you're not him, as if he's even relevant to the actual current state of Canadian politics. This, if I guarantee you, if you asked people how much they cared about Donald Trump 3 months ago, this number would probably almost be reversed. I'd say it's at least half of Canadians who would think that we should be talking about him because he's such a danger to our country and all that. This is embarrassing. 16% of people still like the jabbering of the Liberals on the Trump issue. And this is so it shouldn't be shocking at all to see that the Conservatives have taken the lead in the Abacus Data poll. And again, they've taken a lead in Angus Reid, in Main Street, and Innovative. The Conservatives have caught up massively, and it's off the back of the fact that the Liberals aren't delivering. And frankly, the things that they ran the last election campaign on are not going to be relevant forever. You can't really pull the same trick twice when it comes to Donald Trump. What are they going to throw Mark Carney under the bus, swap him out for a new leader, and then set their hair on fire about whoever the next Republican nominee is? Even if they attempted that, I don't think that Canadians would let that slide next time. While, yes, I was disappointed in people prioritizing Trump as so much of an issue as they did, at the same time, at least I can have confidence that, yeah, you can't just bring up Trump again in a year and a half if we have a snap election and somehow slide back into office. It only barely worked for them this last time. They won a minority government, and the Conservatives in the closest ridings were only 8,000 votes away collectively from being the minority government in charge. Anyways, but with that being said, hopefully you guys like these little polling update videos. Tomorrow I will have a Angus Reid poll. That one was super interesting because not only is it showing that the Liberals are hemorrhaging votes back over to the NDP, but Mark Carney's popularity is sliding heavily, like was flying on clouds a couple of months ago in the perception of a lot of people, and he is now barely staying above having an overall negative perception. And that's pretty hard to pull off so early into your term. Anyways, so with that being said, thanks for you guys for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.